Oh my God. Donald Trump is utterly obsessed now with dying and getting into heaven. And the deal is, it is so crazy what I believe it's connected to. And just to be clear, hell if I know what's really going on in his mind. But yesterday at 8 in the morning, he called into Fox News to talk about Ukraine, to talk about what happened at this summit. And of course, it was a lot of BS that he was shoveling. But you've got to listen to what he had to say about getting into heaven. And I'm going to put this in context for you. So let us go ahead and play that.
End it. I want to end it. You know, we're not losing American lives. We're not losing American soldiers. We're losing Russian and Ukrainian, mostly soldiers. Some people, as missiles hit wrong spots or get lobbed into cities like Kiev and towns. But, you know, if I can save 7,000 people a week from being killed, I think that's a pretty. I want to try and get to heaven if possible. I'm hearing I'm not doing well. I hear I'm really at the bottom of the totem pole. But if I can get to heaven, this will be one of the reasons. Well, I think I saved a lot of lives with India, Pakistan. They were going at it. The planes were being shot down. That was going to be maybe a nuclear war if I let that.
Okay. Donald Trump's latest motivation for trying to end the war that Russia has waged against Ukraine, for which he doesn't understand the root causes, by the way, for which he lies. His motivation is now not just the Nobel Peace Prize, but he has upped it a notch. He wants a choice piece of real estate in heaven. I kid you not. He's trying to make a deal with a higher power, I think. It's sort of tongue in cheek. But when Donald Trump jokes about something, he's mostly serious. He's just floating the idea. And it's not the first time he was obsessed with death. He's been talking a lot about death, dying, and getting into heaven. And I want to be clear to you, whatever numbers he is throwing out are insane. Like he's going to go to St. Peter's and go, look, I saved 7,000 people a day. And St. Peter's is going to go, you raped a ton of women and you lied and defamed them. And how about your relationship with Jeff Epstein, where you were fine with, and maybe even participated in the exploitation of children and in international child sex ring? You lied constantly. Like, what does he think he's going to say? Yeah, sure, I did that shit. But listen, I saved all these lives. Like he's trying to make a real estate deal. Even the way he said a totem pole, as if heaven is this exclusive place by which you get in or you don't get in by rank, as opposed to like, well, you know, you're a little low on the totem pole, so we can't get to you. We only have so many spots. That, I don't think, my friends, is how it works, if there even is an afterlife. Okay, I said that. So I need to tell you what I think is going on in Donald Trump's mind. So let's share this. So I think the New York Times had a really good story about this. The headline yesterday was, I want to try and get to heaven. Trump gets reflective on Fox and Friends. And this story was written by, let me move forward. Let me blow this up a little bit. It was written by Sean McCreish. And I'm going to read you the header because this is a news story, but it's kind of amazing in a news story when the author gets a little editorial vibe, right? This is crazy town all the time on today's show. So Sean McCreish writes, President Trump dialed into Fox and Friends on Tuesday morning and revealed his newest and truest motivation for brokering an end to the war in Ukraine. He's worried he might not get into heaven after he dies. You heard it. I'm going to quote it again. I want to try and get to heaven if possible. I'm hearing I'm not doing well. I'm really at the bottom of the totem pole. But if I can get into heaven, this will be one of the reasons. The beautiful writer Sean McCreesh says right after that, Holy Mother of God. What a thing to say at 8 o'clock in the morning. And he goes on, you know, and this is Trump. So previously, Donald Trump, and this is McCreesh's reporting, has commented, like Donald Trump is now 79. He turned 79 in June. But about a year ago, when he turned 78, he told reporters, you know, there's a certain point at which you don't want to hear happy birthday. And he added, you just want to pretend the day doesn't exist, right? So this is a year ago when he was running for his second term. He added from that, my father lived a long time. My mother lived a long time. And they were happy and they were great. So maybe we're going to live a long time. I hope so. He didn't say I, he said we. He didn't even want to get so close to the possibility of death. And there's more. So, before I get to more of the story, I want to share with you, well, how long did Fred Trump Sr. live? He died at age 93 in 1999. And you might think that's what Donald is hoping for. But it's not that simple. Because if you've noticed, if your own family, the numbers are going down. My grandparents, my two maternal grandmothers, one lived to 99, and I think one lived to 93. I thought my parents would outlive them. And sadly, my parents died sort of in succession within 14 months of each other. One at 84, the other at 85. That's a huge difference. And you see the same thing happening in Donald's family. But let's look how long his mother lived. His mother died in 2000 at age 88. Okay, let's look at his family tree. So these are the Trump siblings. You can see from left, there is, on your left is Robert, and he is Donald's younger brother. Then you get Elizabeth. In the center is Freddie, the oldest boy, Fred Jr. Then there's Donald and Marianne. In that photo of 5 people, only 2 are left, Donald and his sister Elizabeth. And let's look at when that generation was dying. Well, of course, I think you know Fred Jr., Mary's father, died quite early, age 42. Sadly, from complications of alcoholism, largely not properly treated, and lots of hate and diminishment coming from his own father and Donald. So, age 42. Robert, who died next, Robert, Donald's younger brother, just died, and it was I'm looking at this date, in 2020, just 5 years ago. Robert died at 71. How about Mary Ann Trump Berry, the federal judge? She died 2 years ago at 86. And that is the tree. So the only 2 people left are Donald's older sister, Elizabeth Trump Grau. She is now 83. Donald Trump is 79. So this has to be on his mind. He mentions his parents, that he wants to live as long as them. That doesn't seem like what's happening in the world today, whether it's pollutants that come externally, or it's all the hamburgers, or we, of course, have Trump's lifestyle. Now, let's look more at the New York Times article. Mr. Trump's memories of his parents have stirred thoughts of heaven and hell in him in the past. After he was convicted on 34 felony counts, remember that was business records falsification in New York court, criminal trial, related to the Stormy Daniels hush money payments made by Michael Cohen at the direction of Donald Trump to help Donald win the election. Now, and to interfere in the election, that was why it was a felony. Now remember, Michael Cohen went to federal prison for that. Bill Barr decided not to charge Donald Trump in those actions. And when Merrick Garland took office, the statute of limitations had not run. And he could have brought federal charges, but he did not. He did not. Let's remember that. Now, okay. After that conviction, he said, now my beautiful parents are up in heaven. I think they are. He said at a rally, they're up there looking down. They say, how did this happen to my son? Then he added, was thinking out loud. This guy gets it going. No one else is as good at both extemporaneously speaking about his own life and lying just seamlessly. He called it the weave. We haven't heard that recently. What did he say? He said, I know my mother's in heaven. This was at a Madison Square Garden rally in October, right? Last October, right before the election. I'm not 100% sure about my father, but he's close. Okay, Donald. Now, why might Donald be especially worried about dying? I mean, he won the Nobel Peace Prize, right? But he wants something more enduring, like heaven. I actually think pretty soon he's going to be gunning for sainthood. And you may think, what the hell? Mark my words, you heard it today, August 20th, 2025. Donald Trump is not only going to be gunning for sainthood, but some of his followers, when he passes, and he will try to demand he become a saint. Okay, so let's look at what the hell's going on with Donald. Do you see, and I think what I need to do is let you see this a bit bigger here. Look at this. There's some close-up here from the Alaska summit just on Friday, and you can see Vladimir Putin's ankles. Vladimir Putin, a lying, awful murderer, has nice ankles. Look, nice and slim. Okay, so I wanted to compliment his ankles. He has other health issues, but those do not reveal any problems. Look at Donald Trump's. Still swollen, even though he is wearing support hose, support stockings. He probably doesn't like me calling them that, but that's what they are. Compression socks. Compression socks. That sounds manly. What do you think? Compression socks. Wear them. It is manly. Okay. So what's the deal with that? Why? I think you remember it was just a month ago when Carolyn Leavitt revealed, if you can call this, a physician's report. And we decided if they were saying this about him, there must be something even worse. What they were saying is the reason why his ankles are swollen was a condition that they called chronic venous insufficiency. Now, I'm gonna remove that right now. What is chronic venous insufficiency? I'm not a doctor. All of us Googled at the time. It just has to do with, I think, blood pooling down in your veins, and it has a hard time getting back up where it needs to go. And that's why his ankles are so swollen. Now, it's possible that's what it is. A lot of nurses on social media are suggesting it might be, congestive heart failure. It doesn't really matter what it is. Donald Trump has got death on his mind. Now, look, I think this is related to the conversations he has been having about seeking a third term. And this is where I want to get into more of a crazy town discussion. And so this show is going to be a little chopped short. So we're going to dive into my crazy town idea. Now let me, that he must have on his mind. Here we go. Okay. That is my brief crazy town. Now, friends, it's hard to have a trained legal mind and not think like a lawyer, right? And here's what I think Donald Trump's thinking about. Now, I know he's not a lawyer, but Donald Trump is someone who, if this is a skill to have. You tell someone you can't do that, and you say, why? Why? Don't tell me what to do. Why? And then people have to keep answering, why not? And when someone puts up a roadblock or a brick wall, he says, I want to go through it, blow it up. That's all he does. It doesn't make him smarter. It makes him more challenging. And that is how he's blown through the norms. That is how he has been able to do things that are unlawful or try to put in place things that are unlawful, like an executive order saying there's no more birthright citizenship, even though there's no Supreme Court cases on his side. He's able to do that because he knows no one can stop him until they stop him, right? So Donald Trump wants to be president for a third time. And so obviously, I think you know the obstacle standing in his way. And guys, this relates to the death thing. But you know, there's this 22nd Amendment standing in his way. There's something else on his mind, how old he would be at the end of this term and how old he would be during his third term. He's got that in mind. Why? I don't know. That makes sense because people talk about stuff like that. He's 79 now, right? So, and he was 78 when he was running for office before. He will be 82 when they're the next presidential election cycle. 82, right? So he'd be 86 at the end if he actually had a third presidency. So he is thinking about that. Now you may wonder, what does that mean? Well, I like to look at this. He's probably thinking, will he live? I know he's looking at his parents, but what do the actuarial tables say about this? I looked this up for you because I know you would like to know this kind of thing, actuarially wise. So the actuaries, I think you're with me here. And I want to make this a little bigger. Let's just get this to where we want it to go. If you are a male and you are, let's go to, already made it to the age of 78. You see this? And we're looking at male and female. So I'm looking at the second column. You make it to the age of 78. And he is now 79, though. His life expectancy is 7.78 years. That's what we got. Now, that's just on average. That's if someone's selling life insurance. Where does that get us? That gets us right to the end of a third presidency. Now, even if it said 2 years, he would call bullshit on that. Okay, guys. So I start to think, well, there's, everyone's like, well, there's no fucking way. There's that 22nd Amendment. So I started looking at this amendment. And let's look at that amendment. And no, this is not legal advice for the Trump administration. This is me warning you not to get complacent. Don't get complacent. So I've got this language, and let me just back up again so you can actually look at it, right? This is Section 1 of the 22nd Amendment enacted after FDR, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, had a very long stretch as presidency and died in office. So let me read this to you. It says, no person shall be elected to the office of the president more than twice. And no person who has held the office of the president or acted as president for more than 2 years of a term to which some other person was elected shall be elected to the office of the president more than once. Okay. And then this wouldn't apply to people retroactively. So what does this mean? This would mean, let's say Donald Trump, let's just run through some of these things. Let's say Donald Trump were to have a heart attack tomorrow. It could happen, okay? And J.D. Vance were to become president. That means if J.D. Vance served, he'd be serving more than 2 years, right? He would only have one chance of election at that point, right? He would only be able to serve at that point, run one more time, like it would be in 2028. But that's not what we're looking at. Could Donald Trump be president for a third term? Well, it says you can't be elected to the office of president more than twice, okay? But I can imagine, I want to stop sharing, Donald Trump saying, well, elected to the office, but what if I stay in office some other way? You heard me. What if I stay some other way, is what he is thinking. Plant that in your mind. Plant that in your flipping mind. The only way around, so if he does one of these insurrections or he cancels the election, which I know you're saying he can't do. I know I've heard it before. Watch him. Watch him put armed guards. He lined up guards, ICE people, ICE officers outside of Newsom's press conference. Donald Trump wants to stay in office for a third term, whatever way he can. So if he tries to stage another insurrection, the only way to stop him is for Congress to stop him. We need Congress somehow. We need to get that House back, and we need to convince the Senate to pass legislation to make clear that anyone who attempts to stay in office beyond a second term through an insurrection activity, that would qualify. We also need Congress. I mean, we don't even need to deal with, the 14th Amendment, Section 3. We need to focus on the fact that we need to, I mean, that's the only kind of way, I think, to get at, because there's no enabling of Congress to make that effective. But the reality is he's not eligible to be elected. But what about appointed? What about a coup? And I know a coup is illegal. I get that. That's where we are. That's where my mind is. That's where Donald Trump is. He thinks he can get into heaven. He thinks he can get a Nobel Peace Prize. He is justifying in his mind. He knows he's done shit. He knows he's an awful person, but he thinks he's a great person, or he could clean that up if he can tell himself he saves 7,000 lives a day, and he can do some kind of math and think he's great enough to justify staying in office. Because he's telling people, and it's not true, he's already solved 6 wars. That's not true. I mean, we can talk about that before. This is what's happening in our country. So that's where we are. And I look at those actuarial tables, and I look at a man with those swollen ankles in a terrible lifestyle. And I say, it's a gamble. It's a gamble. But where we are right now is I don't think Donald Trump, if he is alive, will be able to leave office. There's one thing standing in the way of him, one, and it is the Republican Party. And they know damn well, and what has to happen is they cannot bury their heads in the sand, because we will not have a 60-person vote of Democrats in the Senate. We might win the House back. We might. Donald Trump's doing everything to make Texas gerrymander their way out of this. As you may know, there is even a congresswoman right now, I think you know this, in Texas, who is essentially being held hostage. They won't let her leave the Texas legislature. And do you know why that is the case? It is because right now in Texas, they're afraid that if the governor of Texas actually decides to have a new special session to get that gerrymandered map, to get that gerrymandered, her name is Nicole Collier, and she did sleep on the House floor in Texas. So what's going on is everyone else in Texas, all the other Democrats, agreed to the condition that if they wanted to leave the Texas House and actually leave the building and go home to their families and have a life, they had to be escorted by a police officer or a sheriff to make sure that they come back. But Nicole Collier refuses. And so she, my friends, is kind of incredibly, and I'm going to, refusing to this. And so she is staying there. What I'm telling you is Donald Trump will do everything to make sure we don't get the House. But the bottom line is we are going to need Republicans to be shamed into, which is really hard, facing the facts that Donald Trump will not leave office unless they finally do something to either impeach him and remove him, impeach and convict and remove, or pass legislation to stop him, or do something. It's in their hands, and it only gets worse from here. I am confident, though, that if we face reality, and if reality hits Donald Trump through natural causes, or if somehow we manage to win back the House and win the hearts of, well, I shouldn't say win the hearts. If we get 51 votes in the Senate, they can just change the Senate rules and make sure that they pass or push through a different kind of budget. Stop Donald Trump from his death camps. Stop Donald Trump from declaring that Donald Trump did engage in that insurrection back in 2020 and make him ineligible for office. So that could be a helpful way. I am just concerned right now that we need to work harder to push him out of office. Anyway, so that is my totally crazy town situation. And I'm just gonna play this for you one more time. Donald Trump's bid for heaven, and then adieu until tomorrow.
I want to end it. We're not losing American lives. We're not losing American soldiers. We're losing Russian and Ukrainian, mostly soldiers. Some people, as missiles hit wrong spots or get lobbed into cities like Kiev and towns. But, if I can save 7,000 people a week from being killed, I think that's I want to try and get to heaven if possible. I'm hearing I'm not doing well. I hear I'm really at the bottom of the totem pole. But if I can get to heaven, this will be one of the reasons. Well, I think.
Let's remind you, there's no place in heaven, if there actually is an afterlife where decent people should go, where people who engaged in or were best friends with somebody who maintained an international child pedophile ring should be there. So let's look at that. And with that, I bid you adieu.
Hello, prison mates. It's the Gen Taub show. Well, welcome everyone. Let's learn about what is happening in politics yesterday and today. There was hope, and we are together in this democracy we work for. And again, welcome to the Gen Taub show. Hello, prison mates. It's the Gen Taub show. Well, welcome everyone. Let's learn about what is happening in politics yesterday and today. There was hope, and we are together in this democracy we work for. And again, welcome to the Gen Taub show. Hello, prison mates. It's the Gen Taub show. Well, welcome everyone. Let's learn about what is happening in politics yesterday and today. There was hope, and we are together in this democracy we work for. And again, welcome to the Gen Taub show.